Talk to me about your encounter or meeting Liam Neeson.
Well, to be quite honest, he was just a very, very normal person. And he blended in very, very well with the whole community, Like, when he was working, he was working. It's as simple as that. So some people were giving out, oh, he wouldn't take a selfie with me and things like that. And they didn't realise that this man has a job to do. But once he was off duty, you couldn't get a nicer fella. I mean, he went out and he visited the Ukrainians, the displaced people in Killybegs. He went all over the place and couldn't have been better to people, And to say that he was impressed with the place would be an understatement. He genuinely is thinking of buying a piece of property down around that area. He just couldn't believe the welcome he got. It was absolutely fantastic, And people treated him as normal, which is the important thing. I mean, the opportunities that movie has created for that area are just unbelievable. The area, it's all very close together, and it's, shall we say, southwest Donegal. But that includes Glencolmcille, Slieve League, Carrick, all those areas, highly scenic. And my concept would be that the people in power or the people behind tourism marketing should really get themselves together and say, right, how can we benefit from the impact that this has created? Because it's a very accessible area. It's all within 40 square miles. It reminds me of the Donegal Peninsula back in Ryan's Daughter time. I mean, they carefully looked at that. Then they had Far and Away afterwards, which starred Tom Cruise. But they made that. That's what made the Donegal Peninsula as a destination.
Yes.
And that can happen in Donegal. But people really have to get their thinking caps and use it now when it's fresh in people's mind. And be ready to, I hate using the word capitalise, but it is it's a rugged area. There's great characters. There's people there who treat you. That's what Neeson thought was one of the greatest things. People treat you as they are. They're not saying, good morning, Mr. Neeson. The big one. How are you, Liam?
Yeah.
And he would be saying, how are you, Paddy? Yeah. And that's great. That's Donegal. And that's what we wanted to be.
Yeah. Did you have much of an opportunity to, I suppose, have a general conversation with Liam Neeson? How close to him did you actually get on a day-to-day basis of the filming? Because I know you were flat out there. I saw you on Facebook. You shot a very popular video of Liam Neeson filming a scene in Ardra. And did you have much chance for a chat with Liam?
Not a hell of a lot, to be quite honest with you. There's no point, we weren't sort of talking all day. You would have sort of passing conversations with him and things like that. You see, as I say, that there was one thing he was a stickler about, his work. And, right, I would have 10 versions of that video. Now, that video went viral. It was 17 seconds of him walking from the corner house across the street. And I couldn't believe it. It's got over 200,000 views on the internet, There was nothing special about it. But it just captured the imagination of the people. So that's the kind of an audience that I suppose the man attracts.
Well, when you're talking about, great movie actors in the last 10 years, I don't think there's anyone personally that can outdo Liam Neeson in terms of what he's actually done in the movie game. So to see a figure like that walking across the street in Ardra, I can actually see why it captured the imagination of people, to be honest with you, Matt.
It is, and people forget. Everybody's sort of quoting, taken. And I forget what his famous phrase is, that I'll kill you or something like that, But if you go back, I mean, that man was Schindler's List, which was a major movie, a fantastic movie. I think he was Michael Collins, wasn't he? And Michael Collins.
He was indeed, yeah.
Yeah, he has done some major movies. He's 70 years of age. Now, you'd kill me for saying that, but that is his age. And he's going non-stop. His only complaint in life is his stomach cramps. And he was very worried about them, he was telling me. But it turned out that he was drinking far too much coffee and far too much Coke.
I see. Not a good combination if you're overdoing it.
No. I know all about it because I'm a kind of victim for that myself.
But yeah, seems like a really down-to-earth man, Liam Neeson. I never even mind the big names, like Taken obviously is what everyone knows him for. He's appeared in a lot of movies there you see on Netflix and what have you, and I've yet to come across a bad movie he's been in, to be honest with you.
That's true.
Funny thing about Liam Neeson actually struck me, because I had seen him in pictures on Facebook, and I thought to myself, something? I thought to myself, you'd think a man like that, a movie star, would be better dressed. I said, he looks like a man that's after coming out of a session or something. But then it struck me, he was playing in character in a movie.
totally. And he never changed. I actually did say to him, I said to him at one stage in time, Liam, I said, have you the only one set of clothes with you? And he looked at me. He said, why? I said, Jesus Christ, there's people wondering. I said, you know, if you keep arriving in that brown jacket, people will think you're smelling.
Yeah, it did cross my mind.
Same goes all the time, but that was part of it. And you see, people think that he was being rude or trying to avoid people. They have to remember this movie was shot, or supposed to be shot, in the 60s and the 70s. And say you or I now, as we're dressed at the moment, just happen to wander onto the set, they'd have to reshoot everything because we're modern dressed and we'd be out of sync with the rest of the movie, you know. So that is one of the reasons why there were restricted areas.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it's there for a purpose. And
oh, yeah.
It must have been great watching, like going behind at Liam Neeson. It's hard for me not to be drawn to this. It must have been great watching such a professional like camera crew on like a major star. Matt, I suppose it kind of seemed surreal to you.
It was boring. I'll tell you what it was boring about is, and people, well, they probably do realise now, the amount of detail that goes into this. I mean, the video that we talked about, my 17-second one, he had done that about 20 times. In other words, he had walked out of the corner house in Ardra over to the other side of the street. And that had to be done 17 times before the cameraman was happy with it.
But sure, Matt, wouldn't a man be doing that on a Saturday night himself, wearing back 17 times?
He would, but there might be a reward at the end of it of a good pint.
Yeah, but you know, I know what you mean. It wasn't the most entertaining.
No. And you had to have patience and, you know, hope that you'd get something yourself out of it, you know. But everybody was so good, but there was more shots and retake and do it again. But I would say it will be fascinating when it comes out, you know.
I can just imagine. I asked Michael Redmond, you know, who played the role of Father Stone and Father Ted. I asked him one time, a stupid enough question, I suppose, to ask him, but I said to Michael, I suppose, were you having great crack, you know, in the Father Ted house and that? And he says, no. He says, it was all work. It was hard work. He says there was very little time for laughing. Yeah. You know, you kind of forget that these are actors at the end of the day.
They are, and they have a role to get across, and people don't realise that, as you say, it's damn hard work. Very, very hard work, you know.
It's not easy, and you have to give them their kudos, as they say.
Yeah, very, very much so. And the research that got into it now, I'm not going to give away the whole part of the movie, but there was an awful lot of research. There was drones used to find sites. There was, shall we say, history was gone into. It's a serious movie.
Yeah.
It's not a comedy. It goes back to, you know, when times weren't really good and people were disappearing and stuff like that, you know. It's
fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
And you know, it really is. It's a serious movie, but I think people are going to find it very interesting. It really is. It's a combination of fact and fiction. You know, they have done the research very, very deeply. No, I'll go no further than that, because if you did go further than that, you'd only give away what it's all about. Do you know what I mean? And you don't want to do that, because there's some key elements that if you got a wind of it at all, you kind of know.
Yeah. It has to be the suspense for the person going to the movie theatre, and that's what they want.
Exactly.
Well,
I think their target market as well would be, because the times that are in it, would be the Irish American market. It's been sold to Netflix, as you know, and they've spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
So it'll get massive distribution. It's guaranteed the distribution already, you know.
Yeah. Liam Neeson, I can just imagine Netflix now is so huge, and obviously exclusives, and you see about documentaries and that. It's going to be fascinating to see.